it is not safe. The fire may not be directly impacting their structure or property, but there are huge hazards out there.
If I lose that house, I don't know what I'll do. It's just my worst fear.
It makes you think a lot different about what you think courage is.
The news starts right now. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us for the special 4 p.m. edition of NBC Bay Area News. I'm Janelle Wang.
And I'm Raj Mathai. Just like last week, we're going to be on at 4 p.m. all of this week to get you the new information on the wildfires and the latest coronavirus guidelines. We also have Jessica Aguirre with us.
Raj and Janelle, an historic fire season amid a historic pandemic. Today, those are converging. Governor Newsom talked about both today. He says the state is throwing all its resources at it. But he also says that this year's fire season leaves last year's in the rubble. Coming up, the staggering numbers he shared with us today.
We will see you shortly. Thanks, Jess. Let's start with some encouraging news here. The red flag warning, which signals dangerous fire weather, was canceled this morning. This is video from CAL FIRE in the Santa Cruz Mountains near Pescadero Creek. They also just tweeted out these photos of crews setting backfires on Cloverdale Road in San Mateo County, just south of Pescadero. Here's more good news. They were able to hold containment lines overnight, and there are no new evacuation warnings or orders that are issued in the Bay Area since last night. Let's go to Livermore now. This is the CAL FIRE helicopter base. Choppers doing recon missions, ferrying firefighters to remote areas, and water drops, of course, on the front lines in Alameda and Santa Clara counties. Now, that fire map, it's still pretty daunting to look at. All 4 corners of the Bay Area here, but we are getting better. The largest is the SCU complex fire east of the San Jose foothills. The most deadly is the LNU fire in the North Bay, and the CZU fire remains the concern in the Santa Cruz Mountains.
Yeah, the CZU fire has claimed the life of a 70-year-old man near Davenport. The fire has scorched 78,000 acres and is now 13% contained. At this hour, the LNU complex fire in the North Bay has burned more than 350,000 acres. 5 people have died. This fire is 22% contained. And in the South Bay, the SCU has grown to more than 347,000 acres with 10% containment. Evacuation warnings are now in place for parts of the Tri-Valley and Santa Clara County.
So far, 5 people have died in our area from these fires, among them a woman in Napa County who could not escape the flames in time. Today, we talk with her family. Let's bring in NBC Bay Area's Jody Hernandez, who joins us in the North Bay with that interview. And Jody, these are the tough parts of the job. What do they have to say to you?
I'll tell you, her son is completely devastated, but he wanted to talk to us today to let people know the importance of heeding those evacuation orders. Now, this fire has taken a heavy, heavy toll. 350,000 acres have burned. Nearly 900 structures have been destroyed, but it is the loss of human life that is the biggest tragedy. 70-year-old Mary Hintmeyer and her 72-year-old boyfriend Leo McDermott and Leo's son Tom McDermott all died in the fire. Hintmeyer's son says he was in contact with his mom all day last Tuesday when the fire broke out. He says she actually drove out to the roadblock but then came back home to get her boyfriend, who was in a wheelchair, and her boyfriend's son. But they never made it out. Instead, they took refuge in a makeshift fire shelter that they had built into the side of a hill. That's where searchers found their bodies. Mary's son is torn up thinking about the trio's final moments.
How scared she was. I mean, her biggest fear was actually burning. And she didn't even want to be cremated. And that's pretty much the way things ended up. The message is get out. Don't worry about your stuff. Your family's going to have to deal with the aftermath of you not getting out. And that's way worse than losing your property. It is.
Now, the trio are among 5 people who have died in the LNU complex fire. 2 others have died in Solano County. Robert McNeil says his mother was his best friend. They talked or communicated by text or phone nearly every day, and he dearly, dearly misses her. This is a hard time for his family, but he thought it was really important to talk again. to know the importance of heeding those evacuation warnings. When you're told to go, he says, you just have to pack up and leave. Reporting live, I'm Jody Hernandez, NBC Bay Area News.
We appreciate his time during this difficult time. We are thinking about that family. Thank you, Jody. Well, as fires continue to devastate mountain communities, some in the Bonnie Doon area say CAL FIRE hasn't done enough to save their homes, and some are now ignoring evacuation orders to protect their own property. NBC Bay Area's Marianne Favreau is live in the Santa Cruz area with more on their frustrations. Marianne.
Well, I'm here at Empire Grade, and you can see the blockade here where police are preventing people from going back up into the fire zone, which is up this road just a few miles. Now, Bonnie Doon was hit very hard. Fire turned several homes into piles of twisted and charred metal. And some who live here say if they had not stayed behind, more homes would have been lost. Jamison Patori was able to save her house and is keeping a close eye on flare-ups today. She says when she asked a CAL FIRE crew to help her protect her home from flames, they told her they didn't have any water. She claims she showed them a fire hydrant on her property with access to 15,000 gallons of water, but they refused to hook it up. Bonnie Doon resident George Sam says he had the same experience. Both say they think CAL FIRE could have done more to save homes.
They could have saved a lot of this community, and they abandoned us. And I don't know why.
Now neighbors are banding together as makeshift firefighters, turning pickups into water trucks as they work to protect homes with shovels and garden hoses. CAL FIRE has repeatedly says it's been short-staffed on this fire and has urged people to heed evacuations. We reached out to CAL FIRE to ask why crews didn't use home hydrants. I just got off the phone with CAL FIRE, and they say that hand crews are not trained to do water fights and may not have had the proper hoses or adjusters to tap into those home hydrants. Also, in the early stages of the fire, CAL FIRE said they only had 15 engines out here, and they were forced to triage the firefights in order to save the most homes. Reporting live in Santa Cruz County, Marianne Favreau, NBC Bay Area News.
It's challenging for everyone going through this. So we've had heat, we've had wind, we've had lightning. We've seen just about everything in these past, 8 or 9 days. Let's bring in our chief meteorologist, Jeff Ranieri. Jeff, let's kind of reset the table here as we begin this week. What comes next?
Well, I think right now we're, dodged a bullet last night. We did have some lightning strikes across Northern California. We didn't have any major strikes break out here. We ended up with a few spotty showers. And the good news right now is most of that instability has left Northern California. So our red flag fire warning has been able to expire. I wanted to start off with a look at Storm Ranger, our mobile Doppler radar. And you can see on the current scan, we are not picking up any rainfall. So that's the good news. The smoke, it has been horrific outside. Hard to breathe anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes after you're outside. It really just starts to impact you. So you can see right now on this satellite view, we have thick smoke, all of this gray across the interior valleys. That is smoke. But at the coastline, we have a foggy breeze returning, and that's one reason why the beaches in San Francisco did get in on some blue sky. So what about on the fire lines? We have 3 main fire zones we have been following. You can see it on this map. Find the fire that's closest to you, and I've got the conditions for right now and tomorrow. Now, the worst of the conditions when it comes to heat and humidity is in the North Bay, the NLU complex, 91 degrees, gusts up to about 20, and humidity of 35%. I'll take a look at the air quality and what we can expect for temperatures tomorrow. We'll wrap that up for you in about 15 minutes.
Okay, Jeff, thank you so much. Well, it's like nothing we've ever seen before in the state of California. That is the assessment from Governor Newsom today during his daily press briefing, which is now a briefing on both the pandemic and the wildfires. NBC Bay Area's Jessica Geary joins us with more on what the governor had to say today. Jessica.
Janelle, just when you think it can't get worse, you actually see the numbers. The state.
Well, during his daily press briefing, Governor Newsom gave a sobering overview of what's going on right now. Jessica was going to talk about the 14,000 firefighters on the front lines battling 17 major wildfires, including the second and third largest in state history. They're both burning in the Bay Area right now. 1,200 structures lost so far, a number that will grow. And we've had 7 lives lost so far. But the real headline, the number of fires in 2020, this year, basically compared to last year.
Put it in perspective. I say historic. I mean it with purpose and intention. Just consider last year at this stage, this date. Last year in 2019, we had 4,292 wildfires in the state of California, burned about 56,000 acres. 4,292 wildfires this time last year. Today, over 7,000 wildfires, 7,002, burning now north of 1.4 million acres.
Now, keep in mind, we're not even midway through fire season, which actually goes into October. At this very moment, we have over 600 fires burning in the state. And while we are getting a bit of a break right now with that red flag warning expiring, temps are going to remain pretty warm through this weekend. Jess will have more coming up at 5. But up next, having to evacuate your home is bad enough, but evacuating during a pandemic brings in special concerns. We're going to look at the fears the fires could make at making this coronavirus even worse.
How lousy is the air for your health? I'm consumer investigator Chris Kimura. We'll convert the smoky air to the equivalent number of cigarettes and maybe convince you to stay inside when you can. That's next.
With tens of thousands of fire evacuees statewide and limited places to put them, there are growing concerns of a new COVID spike. In fact, that was one of the questions Governor Newsom faced today. NBC Bay Area's Damian Trujillo is in the South Bay with the effort to make sure the fire doesn't trigger this new COVID crisis. Damian.
Well, Janelle, without the proper protocols, there is concern that this could trigger some new COVID clusters. But the governor says he toured these facilities, these shelters, and he's satisfied that there's enough precautions in place to keep this from becoming a pandemic disaster zone. The state has opened 17 shelters across California, 7 in the Santa Cruz area alone. Today, the governor said he toured shelters on Sunday and was impressed with their COVID protocols.
There was a nurse there that screened me. She didn't just take my temperature, but she also asked me a series of questions. Before I could go into the actual shelter, there was another assessment that was done. There were specific protocols.
The governor said there was good social distancing inside as well. Last Thursday, we met up with the Alexander family, who were under orders to evacuate. They went to a friend's house.
They had the spray for the shoes. There's wipes in every room. We were like in the back of the house, so there was a separate entrance.
So as long as people socially distance and mask even while they're there, there's not a concern.
But the chief nursing officer at Good Samaritan Hospital in San Jose says evacuees have to be thorough in their COVID prevention efforts.
So wearing that mask is the most important thing to make sure that we're containing any kind of droplets, and then washing their hands, obviously, with those type things.
Mark Brown says we'll know for sure in a few days what, if any, impact the fires will have on the pandemic. Very smoky right now here at the base of the Santa Cruz Mountains. The governor also said he saw tents inside of some of these shelters, and cots were 10 feet apart at least. So he says there's a lot of social distancing taking place in there. Now they just cross their fingers. We're in the South Bay. I'm Damian Trujillo, NBC Bay Area News.
Damian, thank you. We are looking at that air quality right behind you. What has it been, like 6 straight days now of poor air quality, and we may have several more. Our live cameras tell the story here. San Francisco, as Jeff Ranieri was mentioning, a bit of a blue skies there, but Oakland, it is just hazy. San Jose, hazy. Walnut Creek, fairly hazy as well. Let's bring in Chris Kimura now. You always like to crunch the numbers and have some good analysis for us. What do you got in terms of our air quality?
Cigarette smoke. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at how this compares to smoking cigarettes, and we can tell you that if you're up in Vallejo, for example, it's like smoking 9 cigarettes, Livermore 6, Santa Cruz Mountains, a pack 20 cigarettes here. All right, here's what we did to gauge the threat in our lousy air. We turned to the science nonprofit Berkeley Earth. The researchers there calculated a rule of thumb that lets us translate, essentially, the health effects of air quality into the equivalent number of cigarettes smoked in a day. We cross-referenced that with the Environmental Protection Agency's map. You can see the lousy colors in California right now. Took that formula, put it together, did the math, and so here's what we got. Those eye-popping figures right there, like the 20 cigarettes in the Santa Cruz Mountains. But you know, you can see the darker colors here on the map are where the higher numbers are. Like Vallejo, it's 9 cigarettes. But even where there are lighter colors, you can see that it's still lousy for you. So, for example, up in Berkeley, it's 1.5 cigarettes, even though the sensors there are showing yellow. Same deal down in San Jose. We've got yellow down here, and it's 1.5 cigarettes. So be careful. And you know what? Based on what we see here, perhaps this is motivation to follow the advice of health experts. Bottom line, just stay inside if you can.
Okay, time out. I got some questions here.
Yeah.
So you're saying 4 cigarettes, for example, if I'm in the Tri-Valley, that's if I'm outside for an hour, it's the equivalent of smoking
basically
4 cigarettes?
During the day. So if you're breathing that air during the day, basically that's the equivalent. It's going to work out to about smoking 4 cigarettes in a day. And then, you know, we're assuming that the average air quality here is lousy, and it has been, but it does go up and go down throughout the day. So these numbers are not fixed, because the air quality isn't fixed. But just know that if it's somewhere between 1.5 and 20, likely most of us want to smoke 0 cigarettes in one day. I'm hoping that's where you are.
I don't want to smoke any of those things.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great analysis. Thank you, Chris. Let's bring in our chief meteorologist now, Jeff Ranieri. I don't want to smoke any cigarettes, guys, and just to see that, but you can just see it outside when you can go outside. It's terrible, Jeff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can feel it. You know, you get kind of like a little bit of a burn in your chest if you're outside for more than 5 minutes here in the East Bay. I was trying to do a little bit of yard work this morning. Not a good idea. I thought it'd take maybe 10 minutes, but I had to come right back in just because it's just so bad out there. As we get you to my live Doppler radar, a look at Storm Ranger, our mobile Doppler radar, you'll see any thunderstorm chances have left us right now, and that's why the red flag fire warning has expired. I do want to make sure sure we get that in again. Let's take a look. We just heard from Chris about the air quality and how that equates to smoking cigarettes. But I want to show you the difference we're seeing right now. In San Francisco, we actually had some blue sky today, and that's from a foggy breeze that's beginning to move in. It's really helping to clean out the air there. Unfortunately, it's continuing to push any smoke that was in San Francisco back into the East Bay, getting trapped into the valleys. Look at this shot in Livermore. If you're away from your TV, you got to come see this. Visibility is less than a half mile here as that smoke is extremely thick. Now, not only that, we've got some very warm temperatures and that humidity, so it's just all around really uncomfortable. 90 degrees right now, and we're holding on to 70s at 9 and 10 o'clock tonight. So what about the air quality tomorrow? I think it'll stay unhealthy here through the Bay Area, but again, with a little bit of that foggy breeze staying near the coastline, the beaches will be improving. Really kind of the best spot to be across the Bay Area for that air quality. Temperatures tomorrow have us to the upper 80s to about 90, so not nearly the heat wave we had last week. We can handle that. 90 in Livermore, 85 San Jose, 85 Napa, and you got your cool 60s in Half Moon Bay and San Francisco. And to put our fire danger into perspective, while it was extreme the past couple of days, especially when we had that lightning, tonight it goes down to 160, and by tomorrow it's at 150. So it's still considered very high. You can see on the scale on the left-hand side of the screen, but overall things have dropped at least a little bit. We'll talk more about the weather on the fire lines. We'll take you real close and give you a forecast on those 3 main fire zones. I'll have that for you coming up in about 20 minutes.
We'll see you shortly. Thanks, Jeff. Up next, it's not just people need to evacuate. A local team rounding up livestock that are forced to flee the flames.
Firefighters are struggling to get the upper hand on a fire burning in the Point Reyes National Seashore. This is the Woodward fire. It has burned nearly 2,500 acres and could grow larger today and tomorrow with high winds in the forecast. There are more than 200 firefighters battling these flames, but they haven't been able to get much help from aircraft because of all the smoke. Poor visibility. Evacuation warnings are still in effect for the communities of Olima, Inverness, Inverness Park, and Sea Haven. The Woodward fire was sparked by lightning last week. Like most of the wildfires burning right now, this fire is only 5% contained.
This has always been a focus of ours. What about the pets and livestock? The Alameda Animal Shelter has spent the past week transporting animals from shelters in Solano County back to Alameda County. The goal is just to make sure shelters in the fire zone continue to have enough room for the flood of new animals expected as these fires continue.
There's probably, a few thousand that are displaced that may run away from home because of all the commotion, get lost. And some people, when they have to find emergency housing, can't take their animals with them. And so there's a big need for temporary boarding.
These people are doing a great job. Alameda was able to relocate more than a dozen animals.
Up next at 4:30, staying on alert. We're going to take you live to the South Bay where local communities are ready to evacuate at a moment's notice.
Also, what can you do about all that smoke seeping into your home, even if it's just a little smoke? We've got some tips from a local doctor. Right now at 4:30, we continue the special edition of NBC Bay Area News. We are following the very latest on the fires, the air quality, and the evacuations. Now, the Bay Area did get a break last night from the lightning, but there are more than 600 fires burning across the state tonight.
Right, the two largest are right here in the Bay Area. It's the LNU complex in the North Bay and the SCU complex, which is burning in the South and East Bays. They're now the second and third largest fires in California history. Together, they have burned nearly 700,000 acres just in the past week. Now, the other major complex fire we're covering is the CZU fire. That's one burning along the San Mateo County coastline and in the Santa Cruz Mountains. This is the fire zones right now. As you can see, Northern California, dozens of fires, a huge number of people under evacuation orders, and it has grown to 112,000 today.
Well, crews working the SCU fire in Santa Clara County are trying to prevent the flames from making it to Morgan Hill. Let's bring in NBC Bay Area's Robert Honda. I believe you're right there at the fire lines with some evacuation updates, Robert.
Well, that's right. We're here at the area where the people had to leave an evacuation order. It certainly did happen quickly for those living in the hills behind me. And as you can see, the road is now closed. Now, while Morgan Hill police secure the area for safety and to prevent looting, fire crews are attacking the fire as evacuees just wait and hope. The SCU fire continues to churn through the East Santa Clara County terrain with the town of Morgan Hill right in its path. Neighborhoods in the scenic hills near Anderson Reservoir and Henry Coast State Park, including Jackson Oaks and Holiday Lake Estates, were warned late last week the flames were approaching, and by Sunday afternoon, the evacuation order from CAL FIRE came down. Today, those neighborhoods are deserted.
Yeah, it's the little one you got to watch out for.
Stephen and Michelle Barber grabbed what they could, making sure to get their dogs, important papers, and valuables. They say they're fortunate to have an RV and friends who are letting them stay on their property.
When it hits home, it is a shock. It's hard reality when it's imminent.
We had a chance to go up a couple of mornings and get a few more things and a few more things. And now that we can't go back up, I thought, oh my gosh, we've forgotten so many things.
So far, their home and neighborhood are untouched, but with their view of the valley and hills, it's easy to see the oncoming smoke getting thicker and thicker, and a drive through their neighborhood shows how immersed in trees and vegetation many homes are situated. Fire trucks are poised to try to protect those structures.
You can't see anything. It's just dark, and even our house, before we left, we have a fabulous view of the valley, and you couldn't see anything. It was just fog, but it's smoke. You can't breathe.
It was getting a little bit harder to breathe as we went up the hills. The fire is still distant, but you can see it getting closer. Live in Morgan Hill, Robert Honda, NBC Bay Area News.
Robert, thank you. So as these fires spread, we seem to be getting new evacuation warnings and orders, not only daily, but almost on an hourly basis. Let's bring in Chris Kamara now to give us a look at who's next to the fire site. Even last night in my area on the peninsula, I got two evacuation warnings, Palo Alto Hills and Los Altos Hills.
Yeah, and so I have good news actually at this moment. We can talk about some evacuation downgrade. So we're talking about going from an order down to a warning, and this is in Sonoma County. So we're talking about grid 1D1, what they say on the map over here. So we're talking about east of the Sonoma coast, north of the Russian River, west of Myers Grade Road, and south of Fort Ross Road. There's a second one here, which is going to be east of Myers Grade Road, north of the Russian River, west of Cazadero Highway, and south of Fort Ross Road. Nonetheless, in Sonoma County, I'm going to pull up the measurement tool here. We've got Santa Rosa down here. We have, of course, the Pacific here. And then, gosh, I'll give you another waypoint here. Here's Lake Sonoma. So from the north to the south, we're still looking at an evacuation area, which is absolutely huge. North to south, we're looking at 31.5 miles. And then from east to west at this point over here, we'll try to map it out and give you a waypoint here. So 28.1 miles. So that's just in Sonoma. Next door in Napa, we have the same situation going on here. On this map, we have the evacuation orders. They're in blue, overlaid the fire activity in red, then the evacuation warning still down here in yellow, which is just to the east of Napa. So still a big section of area just to the northeast of Napa where you really do need to remain alert. But beyond that, though, to the northeast, we're talking about Calistoga, all the way up to the county line, all the way down toward the Solano line. A lot of folks who are just not supposed to be in their homes right now. Let's move to the SCU Lightning Complex fire. So this is down to the south. This is the one that's taking up part of the South Bay as well as the East Bay. What we've seen over the past couple of days is a growth of the evacuation warning on the north end of the fire here. And again, this is the one where when we were mapping this one out the other day, it was about 50 miles from north to south. The waypoints on this map, here's Fremont over here. This is Modesto over here. So you can see such a huge amount of space. Just think of how long it takes to drive from Fremont to Modesto. On the north end over here, here's Tracy. So that evacuation warning just getting so close to Tracy. So we're up at 580 on the north end of that evacuation warning. Transitions to evacuation order all the way down to the south where we have Red Hill, Pacheco State Park right there, and the map has decided to zoom on its own. So we'll continue watching this for you. And of course, if you want information about updates in real time, please go to our website, nbcbayarea.com/evacuations. It's updated in real time, both with the new evacuation warnings and orders, and as well as those downgrades as well. Back to you guys.
Okay, very helpful. Thanks so much, Chris. Well, let's bring in Chief Meteorologist Jeff Ranieri. The red flag warning canceled.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's a sign that is more favorable for firefighters. But of course, we're a long ways away from getting these fires under control.
Yeah, you know, we still have the warm temperatures, but yes, you're right. We are, you know, in the clear when it comes to any kind of thunderstorms tonight, so that is some good news. And I still do not see any big wind events over the next couple of days, so that's also some good news for firefighters. I want to give you the expansive view right now of the wildfires, the 3 main zones we've been tracking. And there's going to be a lot on this map when we go ahead and see it full screen. We have the current temperature on the fire lines, and then I've also put the forecast for tomorrow. So you want to focus in on the one that is closest towards you. And you can see right up here in the North Bay, LNU Lightning Complex. The thing I want you to notice is tomorrow temperatures do drop a little bit down to 91 degrees. Gusts only of 20 miles per hour. Also temperatures dropping here for the SCU Lightning Complex in the South Bay down to 85 degrees tomorrow. Wind gusts of 20. And for the Santa Cruz area, temperatures dropping down to 79 degrees tomorrow and wind gusts of about 20. Now, we've been talking about the smoke. I did want to show you this to remind you how small those smoke particles are. What you're looking at is one strand of human hair in this image, and smoke particles are much smaller than a human hair. It's called PM 2.5 or particulate matter 2.5, and so basically it's extremely small. So if you're outside for an extended period of time, you really need to wear that N95 mask if you have one. Stay hydrated, bring those pets inside, put that car AC on recirculate as well. We'll take a full look at the forecast, and again, I'll bring you right down to the fire lines and the perimeters and more on what's happening on the fire lines in about 10 minutes.
Okay, Jeff, thanks so much. We'll see in a bit. Well, another day of toxic air settled over parts of the Bay Area, bringing with it health problems and a rush on air purifiers. Our business and tech reporter Scott Budman is live in San Francisco with that part of the story. And I have got 2, Scott, and they're running 24/7. They are helpful.
Yeah, in a lot of households they are, Janelle. You know, the air here in San Francisco right now, a lot cleaner than it was earlier this morning, but still somewhat hazy. And as you say, we talked to a lot of people about how to try to keep the haze out of their home. Everything from air purifiers that they find to balling up a towel and putting it underneath a doorway. Anything to try to keep from breathing in the smoke. The day started with extremely bad air, suffocating San Francisco and the East Bay.
You know, the air quality now is bad, especially for people who have asthma, you know, allergies, you know, a lot of people who suffer with sinuses. You know, the smoke is not good, especially with myself. I have allergies, so.
It smells like a 24/7 barbecue happening.
And that feeling led many to hunt for home air purifiers. The rush got to the point that some online stores stopped delivering, and the shelves at this Target in the city were nearly out of product. Those who managed to get one say they're a saving grace.
As well as the heat, because we haven't been able to open the windows,
right.
So it purifies and also cools.
Doctors say air purifiers are fine if you already have one.
Certainly if you have a HEPA filter, a HEPA filtration system, this is the time to use it. Put it on. It is probably going to be of some benefit to you.
But if you don't, he says, don't go out shopping now. It's not worth it because of the bad air. And Dr. Daly says some of that bad air is likely to get into your home no matter what precautions you take. So he says, best to lay off any kind of strenuous exercise, even indoors, for at least the next couple of days. Live in San Francisco, Scott Budman, NBC Bay Area News.
Yeah, try to take it easy if you can. Thanks so much, Scott. We'll go to our website, NBCBayArea.com, for the latest information on the wildfires. That includes helpful maps detailing evacuation zones. You can also check out the perimeter of each of the fires.
Our other big story tonight, the Republican National Convention. President Trump officially accepted his renomination today and had plenty to say. Tonight, one of his sons takes center stage. Here's NBC's Alice Barr with the very latest.
Making it official, President Trump taking the stage at the Republican National Convention in Charlotte, North Carolina today, as more than 300 delegates gather to formally renominate him for a second term to chance of 4 more years.
If you want to really drive him crazy, you say 12 more years.
The in-person event already a stark contrast to the Democrats' virtual convention last week. Trailing Joe Biden in the polls, President Trump is promising a positive message.
Think of your life just prior to the plague coming in. It was the best it's ever been.
But hitting familiar themes today with blistering baseless attacks on mail-in voting, downplaying the pandemic, and highlighting the stock market despite millions of unemployed Americans.
We're just about ready to break the all-time stock market record.
President Trump set to appear every day this week, along with party leaders, members of his family, and the St. Louis couple that pointed guns at Black Lives Matter protesters passing by their home. Vice President Mike Pence also in Charlotte today.
With God's help, we're going to make America great again. Again.
The president and vice president campaigning today in North Carolina as rivals Joe Biden and Kamala Harris tell ABC News they're ready for the attacks to come.
Mr. President, watch me. Look at us both, what we say, what we do.
Republicans stepping into the spotlight this week and setting their sights on the next 4 years. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Well, the Postmaster General says he will not restore mail sorting machines or mailboxes removed from service as part of sweeping changes to the Postal Service. At a hearing today, Louis DeJoy denied any wrongdoing and defiantly refused to reverse changes many fear will impact voting by mail. Democratic lawmakers argued DeJoy's changes are causing lasting damage and widespread mail delays. DeJoy fired back that Democrats are spreading misinformation. At times, the exchanges grew heated.
Look, and I'm very
Will you
proud.
put the machines back?
I'm very proud to lead the organization. The rest of your accusations are actually
Will you put the
outrageous.
high-speed machines
no,
back?
I will not.
You will not.
Will not.
You will not. Well, there you go.
DeJoy is also disputing published reports that he has eliminated overtime for postal workers.
It was a contentious hearing. A recent poll, though, shows California voters are confident in this system. The statewide poll included more than 8,000 registered voters. Here are the results. 84% said they trust the U.S. Postal Service to deliver their ballots safely and on time. 67% of people reported voting by mail in the past. Now, trust did dip among conservative voters. 65% of California Republicans trust in the vote-by-mail system. The poll was conducted by 2 institutes at UC Berkeley.
Okay, we were spared with the lightning, but Jeff will have more on our forecast in the days ahead. Jeff.
Yes, we are looking at some warm temperatures. We're going to get a look on the fire lines. We'll get you a real close-up view of where the hot spots were today, and I'll take you through my extended forecast and our lightning chances in about 6 minutes.
Plus, no longer facing the death penalty, the decision that now changes the fate of Scott Peterson. A stunning development in a case that gripped the Bay Area 16 years ago. The state Supreme Court today overturned the death penalty sentence of Scott Peterson. He's the Modesto man convicted of murdering his wife Lacey Peterson and the couple's unborn child. NBC Bay Area's Joe Rosado Jr. shows us while the court upheld his guilty verdict, the penalty phase may be going back to court.
If you were to set your Wayback Machine for the winter of 2004, chances are every headline, every newscast would include the trial of Scott Peterson, the Modesto fertilizer salesman accused of murdering his wife Lacey and their unborn son Connor.
It was bigger than OJ. It was bigger than the Manson case.
The Redwood City trial lasted 6 months, with the jury convicting Peterson of murdering his wife on Christmas Eve of 2002 and dumping her body in the Bay. He was sentenced to death and has been sitting on death row in San Quentin ever since.
This isn't an extreme case, then what is?
But in a decision issued today, the state Supreme Court ruled Peterson did not get a fair shake, at least in the penalty phase of his trial.
It said that, in effect, the penalty phase of Scott Peterson's trial was over before it started.
Legal analyst Dean Johnson says the court ruled trial judge Alfred DeLucchi wrongly excluded potential jurors from the jury pool because they were opposed to the death penalty.
He cannot exclude people just because they have reservations about the death penalty.
The court ultimately upheld Peterson's murder conviction, but today's ruling gives his attorneys the option of seeking a new penalty phase trial or accept a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Johnson says either way, Peterson's attorneys will likely appeal his case to a federal court, raising the possibility a trial of the decade could have a part 2. Joe Rosado Jr., NBC Bay Area News.
A new service at SFO, on-site rapid COVID testing for employees of the airport. It's the first U.S. airport to do this. The idea is to catch cases before they spread. The rapid testing is part of a larger national return-to-work plan. Dignity Health is doing SFO's on-site testing.
Okay, we've been talking about lightning this week. We escaped a big lightning storm overnight. Are we going to expect any more possible lightning storms this week, Jeff?
Well, there are some very slim chances I've outlined in my 7-day forecast. Right now, there does not seem to be anything that would rival what we have had over the past 2 weeks. So there's a little shred of good news there. We're still stuck with some warm temperatures and also the smoke. But yes, as far as tonight goes, we are clear from any kind of lightning. So let's start off the forecast with the main thing that's impacting all of us, even if you're not on the fire lines or near them. And that, of course, is the smoke. It has just been so thick, so debilitating to really go outside for more than 5 minutes. And you can see on this map today, this is a satellite snapshot over Northern California. And you'll see all of that gray. That's the smoke that continues to move across the Bay Area. But then out here at the coastline, we have started to see the fog develop. And that's beginning to clear the air out for the Bay Area. It's a little bit pushing this definitely into the Central Valley, making it worse there. But I do think it'll help to stir up the air, and we might see some slight improvements as we head through tomorrow. Now, still going to be unhealthy, but some slight improvements. You can already see what it's doing right now. I did this split camera image. San Francisco had some blue sky today, and also the fog beginning to roll in right now, while Livermore is still with some very thick smoke at this time. So let's bring you to the fire lines. We've got 3 main fires we've been following: North Bay, South Bay, also the Santa Cruz Mountains. Let's bring you to the North Bay first. I have the condition right now, and then also the forecast for tomorrow. I've also located on this map where the hot spots are that the firefighters are dealing with. It's all based on satellite heat detection. And on the northern flank of this fire, they have been battling some of those hot spots. Tomorrow, temperatures cool off to 90 degrees, wind gusts of only 20, so no big wind storms, and that will help firefighters. Down here to the South Bay, we've seen some of the most hot spots here on the western side and also the northern side. Tomorrow, temperature drops to 86, wind gusts of 20. Out to the Santa Cruz Mountains, I do have some fire growth right here on the northern side of this fire and also on the southern side, but temperatures also drop here tomorrow down to 79 degrees, wind gusts of 20. Now, overall for the Bay Area, no heat wave. We're looking at temperatures staying right near average right there in Concord with 88 degrees. Livermore 89, San Jose I have you at 85, Oakland 77, up to Santa Rosa 80 degrees. I want want to bring you a look at the futurecast, and you'll see tonight there is some rainfall to the north and to the east of us. As I loop this into the early morning hours, 5 a.m., what you're seeing down here would be some drizzle from the fog at the immediate coastline. Any kind of storms at this point, once again, should stay away. And as we head through 7 o'clock in the morning, we'll have some fog mixing in with the smoke. So kind of some soupy conditions with a little bit of that humidity lingering as well. Lightning chances decrease as we head through Thursday down to about 10%, but we are going to closely monitor it. There's still some instability lingering. San Francisco in the 60s. And for the inland valleys, we'll stay in the 90s as we head through the next 7 days. Right now, no 100s. And that's also a little bit of good news. We're going to have more on the fire lines. We're going to update the conditions, all coming up at 5 o'clock.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Jeff.
Well, up next, it's our yearly push to help animals find forever homes and how you can help.
We'll end with a little smile here. The best way to a firefighter's heart is through their sweet tooth. The woman that you see standing with firefighters in this photo is I. Nelson. She wanted to do something to thank all the hardworking firefighters, so she baked, and you notice the smiles there. Then she made the rounds, dropping off muffins and cookies at 4 different fire stations in San Jose. Based on all the smiles, Janelle, we think they like the deliveries.
Yes, certainly deserving. Well, we are in the home stretch of our NBC Bay Area month-long Clear the Shelters campaign, and we're working to find forever homes for our pets in the Bay Area. This year is especially challenging. The pandemic is posing a problem for many shelters. Sonoma County Animal Services cares for more than 3,200 dogs, cats, and other animals every year. Most are adopted out to new homes, but this year the shelter has been closed to the public for months because of the pandemic. So they've gotten creative to continue their mission. The shelter is leaning on partnerships with rescue groups and one essential business to keep adoptions going off-site.
We are transferring out long-term dogs that have been here, most to other rescue groups and organizations that are able to adopt out.
Again, NBC Bay Area and Telemundo 48 are teaming up to clear the shelters. Adoptions are virtual this year. You're also encouraged, if you can, to donate to your favorite shelters for this entire month. And on August 29th, that's coming up this Saturday, we're going to have live special coverage of our Clear the Shelters effort. All the information you need is online right now. Just go to cleartheshelters.org. NBCBayArea.com or NBCBayArea.com, and we have a banner there that can take you to the right.
Yeah, and we were also talking not just COVID for the shelters, but with all the smoke, a lot of the evacuees, a lot of the shelters are filling up as well. So we look forward to this weekend, or in a couple weekends, for the big Clear the Shelters program. We are not done. We're going to continue our newscast at 5 p.m. with all the latest information about the evacuations, that lousy air quality, and of course the opening night of the Republican National Convention.
We'll see you in a few minutes.
Makes you think a lot different about what you think courage is.
When it hits home, it is a shock. It's hard reality.
If I lose that house, I don't know what I'll do. It's just my worst fear.
The news at 5 starts right now. Good Monday. Thanks for joining us. I'm Janelle Wang.
And I'm Raj Mathai. We have some key updates on the evacuations, the air quality, and also what's happening with the Republican National Convention. Jessica Aguirre is also with us.
Raj and Janelle, what makes the CZU fire burning in San Mateo counties and Santa Cruz County so different than the other 600 fires burning throughout the state? Well, coming up, I'm going to tell you what the governor thinks is partly responsible for that inferno.
We'll see you shortly. And speaking of that fire, let's take a live look now from our NBC Bay Area Sky Ranger. This is that CZU lightning complex fire burning in San Mateo and Santa Cruz counties. And you can just see the smoke down below. And of course, that smoke is spreading across the Bay Area and into Santa Cruz, depending on the wind direction. And we'll get to Jeff Ranieri to find out the wind issues here. This is right over San Gregorio, so near the coastline in San Mateo County. That's the vantage point we're looking at. We'll take a look above now, that CZU lightning complex. That CAL FIRE tweeted this video over the Pescadero Creek area in San Mateo County. And again, you can see that smoke coming from those trees there, Janelle.
Yeah, Raj, we're also tracking the 2 other complex fires in the Bay Area. Take a look at where they are burning. The LNU complex fires in the North Bay. It's tearing through Napa, Sonoma, and Solano counties. And the SCU complex fire is burning in Contra Costa, Alameda, and Santa Clara counties. All 3 complex fires together, they're forcing tens of thousands of evacuations, and for everyone else, just downright dangerous air quality conditions. They continue. This is a live picture over Fremont from one of our HD sky cameras, and you can see it's just blanketed in smoke.
So far, that fire in San Mateo and Santa Cruz counties has scorched 78,000 acres, destroyed more than 230 structures, and claimed the life of a 70-year-old man near Davenport. That fire continues to devastate so many of our mountain communities. Some in the Bonnie Doon area say that CAL FIRE has not done enough to save their homes, and some are now ignoring evacuation orders to protect their own property. This could be a slippery slope here. Let's bring in NBC Bay Area's Marianne Favreau in Santa Cruz for us with the details. Marianne.
Raj, I'm here on Empire Grade. You can see the blockade behind me. The fire is actually burning up the hill several miles. Now, we went into the community of Bonnie Doon today and talked to several residents, and they told us that they felt like they were left to fend for themselves. A trail of devastation in Bonnie Doon. Flames ripped through this area, destroying everything in its path. But some here chose to stay and fight, even after being ordered to get out. Jemerson Patori was able to save her house and is keeping a close eye on flare-ups today, but she's frustrated with CAL FIRE's response.
They could have saved a lot of this community, and they abandoned us. And I don't know why.
Specifically, she's frustrated that fire crews told her they had no water, yet she says they refused to tie in to a working hydrant on her property. George Sam has the same complaint. He says fire crews would not hook up to this hydrant.
That fire hydrant has 15,000 gallons of water against it, right? They would not hook up to it.
Patori says neighbors were forced to fend for themselves, so they turned pickups into water trucks as they worked to protect homes with shovels and garden hoses. We reached out to CAL FIRE to ask why crews didn't use home hydrants. The agency says hand crews are not trained to do water fights and may not have had the hoses or adjusters to tap into home hydrants. Also, CAL FIRE leaders say the first night they only had 15 engines and were outgunned by Mother Nature, so they were forced to triage their response in order to save the most homes. Tonight, staffing has greatly improved. 26 more engines from out of state are here at the fire, and by Wednesday, National Guard troops will be moving in. They're going to be used as field crews. Reporting live in Santa Cruz County, Marianne Favreau, NBC Bay Area News.
Thank you, Marianne. Well, help from above. CAL FIRE posted this video on Twitter. It shows the multiple helicopters working the CZU lightning complex fire in the Santa Cruz Mountains. You can see the aircrafts are just coming in one right after the other to pick up water to drop on the flames. Tweet notes they also have eyes above the helicopters. That's how they're filming this, to make sure those pilots and the crew members are safe as they're doing this.
In the South Bay and the East Bay, a lot of people have their go bags ready. The SCU fire has grown to more than 347,000 acres. It's now 10% contained. Now, evacuation warnings continue for parts of the Tri-Valley and Santa Clara County. In Morgan Hill now, the South Bay, hundreds of evacuated residents can only watch and worry as that SCU fire gets closer to town. Right now, that fire is churning through East Santa Clara County. CAL FIRE crews are carving out dozer lines as a buffer to try to keep flames away from the Morgan Hill communities, including the Jackson Oaks and Holiday Lakes estates. Some people tell us, though, they just can't believe all of this is happening.
When it hits home, it is a shock. It's hard reality when it's imminent.
Hitting home for a lot of us. Morgan Hill already dodged another fire last week coming from a different direction. That, though, was contained before it could reach town. Coming up at 6 o'clock, NBC's Robert Honda will join us with more on another growing worry, looters right there in Morgan Hill and Scotts Valley area.
Okay, let's go up to the North Bay at this hour. The LNU complex fire has burned more than 350,000 acres. The fire is 22% contained. 5 people have died, 2 in Napa County, 3 in Solano County. And tonight, the family of the Napa County victims is urging neighbors to listen to evacuation orders. NBC Bay Area's Jody Hernandez joins us from the burn zone with more on their story and sharing their grief tonight. Jody.
So sad. Several families are dealing with the unthinkable, the loss of a loved one. We talked to one man who lost the person he was closest with, his mother.
She was one of the most caring people that I've ever met. I mean, I'm hoping that I can get half of that in myself.
Robert McNeil is dealing with the loss of his mother. He says his best friend, 70-year-old Mary Hintmeyer, died last week along with her boyfriend, Leo McDermott, and Leo's son, Tom McDermott, when the LNU Lightning Complex fire swept through their Napa County home.
They called the planes off, and the next thing you know, the thing re-erupted, and it went through that whole canyon, and nobody had a chance.
McNeil says his mother drove out to the roadblock, but came back for her boyfriend, who was in a wheelchair. She texted a photo of the fire and said they might have to go into the root cellar. Then the text messages stopped. Mary, Leo, and Tom did seek refuge inside what they called their root cellar, basically a makeshift fire shelter built into the side of a hill. This is where searchers found their remains.
How scared she was. I mean, her biggest fear was actually burning, and she didn't even want to be cremated. And that's pretty much the way things ended up.
The only belonging McNeil could find of his mom's was a porcelain trinket. He wants others to understand the importance of heeding evacuation warnings and not to be fooled into thinking you can survive.
Don't worry about your stuff. Your family's going to have to deal with the aftermath of you not getting out. And that's way worse than losing your property. It is.
We're back here live in the burn zone where this fire blew through here really without any warning. Again, 5 people have lost their lives in this LNU complex fire, 3 in Napa County, 2 in Solano County. Reporting live, I'm Jody Hernandez, NBC Bay Area News.
And it's heartbreaking for that family. We do appreciate him talking with us, and especially talking with Jody there. Here's some good news. No more red flag warnings in the North Bay. The entire town of Healdsburg was under an evacuation warning, but predicted lightning strikes and high winds. It never materialized. CAL FIRE officials giving us their briefing today. They were relieved with the break in the weather and the additional resources coming in. But firefighters also reminding everyone that things can change quickly. One woman who grew up in the North Bay and evacuated over the weekend tells us many of her friends lost their homes just west of Healdsburg. She's hoping the fire doesn't get any closer to downtown.
There's people here that own small businesses that have worked so hard for everything they have.
CAL FIRE is urging people to just follow the evacuation orders and the warnings and just be ready to get out in a moment's notice. Well, evacuation orders and those warnings are changing by the day, and very often changing by the hour. Chris Camaro is with us, keeping track of all this for us. It's a lot going on just because there's 4 real spots in the Bay Area that we're all under here.
And so many people. Let me show you what you're just talking about, Raj. Here's Healdsburg. In yellow, we have the evacuation warnings. In red, we have the evacuation orders. And there has been a shift. The red you see here in the center, these red spots, these are hot spots based on thermal imaging, indicating where the fires likely are or have been over the past couple of hours. So you can see a consolidation essentially right here. However, as you noted, Raj, the situation can change very quickly. But I do have good news. pushing toward the Pacific Ocean. We have a evacuation warning here, and that has been evacuation order rather that has been downgraded to an evacuation warning. So this is what's called 1D2 if you know the area. So it's around let's see here, according to CAL FIRE, east of the Sonoma coast, north of the Russian River, west of Myers Grade Road, and south of Fort Ross Road. Also over here right up against the Pacific Ocean. Let's go look at the SCU fire for just a moment, and you can see the size of it is just massive, especially when you map it at the same time as the CZU fire over here. As we were talking about earlier in the newscast, there are concerns up to the north and to the south. Jeff's going to show you that on a map in just a minute here, but that's where we see the evacuation warnings. And as Roger was mentioning earlier, here's that tense and worrisome situation in Morgan Hill where they have evacuation warnings right up against evacuation orders. Do stay tuned.
Okay, thanks so much, Chris. Well, hazy skies blanketing the Bay Area once again. Live look at Palo Alto along 101, the unhealthy air prompting people to buy up air purifiers to clean up the bad air that has seeped inside their homes. The shelves at a Target in San Francisco used to be full of purifiers and fans. Now they're basically empty. Even some online stores say they're currently unable to deliver air purifiers. If you already have one, doctors say they aren't perfect, but can help keep the air in your home a little cleaner. And another tip, if bad air is getting inside your home through a door or window that doesn't seal completely, try to use a towel to cover up that tiny gap. Let's bring in Chief Meteorologist Jeff Ranieri. We've been dealing with bad air for days now. When will we see some relief?
Well, we're starting to see a little bit at the immediate coastline, which is good news near the beaches. I think some fog tomorrow morning will stir it up a little bit, but will remain in that unhealthy category definitely through tomorrow. And look, last night and early this morning, we dodged a bullet. We had thunderstorms blowing up across the Central Valley, the Sierra foothills, getting real close to the Bay Area, but we didn't have any lightning strikes. So that was some good news. We even got a few showers. I wanted to show you the Doppler radar loop, and you can see as this loops around, look at all of the lightning strikes that we had here across the Sierra and also the Central Valley. Here we go. It's going to start to loop around here in about 3 seconds, right about now. And take your eye right there to the Interstate 5 corridor, and you can see right there quite a few lightning strikes in those early morning hours. So again, we got real lucky on that. Smoke for the interior valleys, but look at this, the coastline starting to clear out with some blue sky and a little bit of fog beginning to mix in at the current moment. Our fire forecast here across the 3 main fire zones, we'll see some cooler weather tomorrow, wind gusts of only 20 miles per hour. So that's also some good news for firefighters. I'll take you with a real close look of those fire lines in the forecast coming up in about 10 minutes.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Well, this isn't normal. We've had more than 7,000 fires in California so far this year, almost doubled what we had last year at this time. And specifically, Janelle, we're talking about that fire in San Mateo County and Santa Cruz County now.
Yeah, the governor addressed that fire specifically today. And what makes it different than the other hundreds of fires raging around California? Jessica Aguirre joins us with the details. Jessica.
Well, Raj and Janelle, Raj is right. I mean, the governor actually opened his daily news briefing today with those startling numbers, saying we've had 7,002 fires this year, and we're not even midway through fire season when last year we had something like 4,200 fires. 14,000 firefighters are on the front lines battling 625 fires. He says this moment is historic for us. The governor also pointing out that there have been 13,000 lightning strikes since mid-August. He says it's really unusual weather, and the governor believes it points to one very specific phenomenon, especially when it comes to that CZU fire, which is burning in San Mateo and Santa Cruz County.
This is a coastal fire, primarily along the coast near the Santa Cruz Mountains, in forests, a lot of redwoods that have simply never seen forest fires because of the weather conditions and the like. Again, a proof point that we are in a different climate and we are dealing with different climate conditions that are precipitating in fires, likes of which we haven't seen in modern recorded history, in dense forests that are well covered and have been historically immune from significant fires.
So the governor there pointing to climate change as maybe what's happening in terms of this wildfire season and some of the fires that we're seeing. Governor says there's 17 major fires in the state. All the resources are being used, including mutual aid from out across the state and from out of state. Lots of resources coming in. Now, coming up at 6, we're going to talk about the historic fire season, you know, colliding with a historic pandemic. How do you keep people safe? Those evacuees that are forced from their homes when you put them in evacuation centers. Traditionally, those are tight locations. So what protocols are in place now to make sure we don't go from one terrible situation to another terrible situation?
This could be a big problem moving forward. We'll see in just a few minutes. Thanks, Jessica. Up next here at 5, not just people forced out of their homes. We'll show you the East Bay team helping animals escape the flames.
And a step in the right direction. A Bay Area county has been dropped off the governor's COVID-19 watch list. I'll tell you which one. Sky Ranger over the CZU fire burning in the Santa Cruz County area and San Mateo County. These pictures just from a few minutes ago. This fire burning nearly 80,000 acres and about 80,000 people forced to flee their homes right now. This fire has killed one person in Santa Cruz County. Containment right about 13%.
Well, every year we talk about the animals in the fire zone, but this time it's so much different. We have 3 different major fire zones. That's a lot of animals and a lot of livestock. NBC Bay Area's Pete Serrata shows us what a team in Alameda is doing to help.
In fire zones, some animal shelters are running out of space. It's why one animal shelter in Alameda County is doing its part to make sure these shelters are getting the help they need.
We know that there's probably thousands of displaced animals when these fires start burning in Northern California and throughout the state.
That's John Lipp with the Alameda Animal Shelter, explaining the impact the wildfires are having on animals across the region. While he says most people make sure that their pets are safe, some don't get the chance.
There's probably a few thousand that are displaced that may run away from home because of all the commotion. Get lost, and some people, when they have to find emergency housing, can't take their animals with them, and so there's a big need for temporary boarding.
It's why the Alameda Animal Shelter recently rented a couple of large vans and drove to Solano County to take in new strays and provide emergency boarding for pets of evacuees. The help means the Solano County shelter can continue to focus on the ongoing crush of evacuated pets and runaways.
We pulled animals that were already in the shelter, that were already up for adoption. That created space for the incoming animals, and then we're able to bring those animals down here and hopefully get them adopted.
Altogether, Alameda relocated more than a dozen pets. The goal is to work with more shelters in affected areas who are feeling the pinch during these unprecedented times, and in the process, helping to find homes for the animals left behind.
It feels really good to know that we could mobilize so quickly, create space, and now the animals all came in Wednesday, so it gave us a couple of days to just assess them medically, get to know them about their behaviors. And now we've started the adoption process. And we have already a lot of people lining up for these great dogs and cats.
In Alameda County, Pete Serratos, NBC Bay Area News.
Hopefully they will all find forever homes. Well, we have a bit of good news for a community looking for something positive. Napa County is no longer on the governor's COVID-19 watch list. It's the first Bay Area county to be removed from the list after they were all added last month. So what does that mean for Napa County? The main things are if they can stay off this list for 14 days, the county is no longer subject to indoor business closures, and schools can start in-person classes in 2 weeks.
Let's bring in Jeff Ranieri. Everything seems to be intertwined here, Jeff, from our air quality to the fire lines to the wind and lightning. What are you seeing here in the next few days?
It still remains a pretty complex picture. I think you said that perfectly. There's just so many different layers to it. I think the bottom line is there's no major wind event over the next 2 to 3 days, really over the next week, and that is probably a sigh of relief, I can guarantee you, for those firefighters. The smoke beginning to improve a little bit at the coastline because we have some fog moving in. So really over the next 24 hours, our beaches will have some of the best air quality. I think the air is going to get mixed up a little bit tomorrow, and you can see our air quality forecast through tomorrow remains unhealthy, but I think overall it will be slightly better just because of the fog helping to mix things out for us. Now, the other thing I want to bring your attention to, I've got a brand new update coming in on our computers. We are storm free right now. The fire warning has been able to expire, but I want to draw your attention to something that I'm following right now, and that is overnight we have some thunderstorm chances just to the north of the Bay Area, and we are going to follow that extremely closely. Let's take a look at the fire zones. There's 3 main fire zones: North Bay, South Bay, also Santa Cruz Mountains. And you can see as we zoom in and get you a closer view here of the North Bay, we have tomorrow's forecast and the fire zone. We're looking at a cooler 89 degrees. Most of the hot spots today were right there on the northern side of the fire perimeter. Down to the South Bay, also cooler temperatures tomorrow, 86, wind gusts only of 20 miles per hour. Most of the fire activity on the north and the western sides. And for the Santa Cruz Mountains, we have you at 78 tomorrow. That's also an improvement, and wind gusts of just 20. Now, there was some fire hotspots on the north and the south side, and that's really where firefighters are focusing their efforts. Now, the forecast tomorrow will stay right near average, upper 80s to about 90 inland. I got 90 in Livermore, mid 80s for San Jose, and 60s right there at the coastline. So not extremely hot, but I still think we'll also have a little bit of humidity in the mix. So 1 o'clock tomorrow morning, we do have some thunderstorms over the Sierra and well to the north of us. And here's the thing we're going to follow. By 5 a.m. that we could see some thunderstorms pop to the north of the Bay Area. And thunderstorms can be kind of rogue sometimes. So that's something we'll have our eyes fixed on tomorrow morning to make sure if anything gets close to us, we'll let you know. And then this down here, that's going to be some drizzle at the immediate coastline. So lots of layers to the forecast. Overall, a 40% chance of some dry lightning into tomorrow, 35% chance Wednesday, and a 10% chance on Thursday. 60s here in San Francisco. And for the inland valleys, we are going with 90s over the next 7 days. And Janelle and Raj, the thing that we're looking at is next week we could have another surge of humid air. We're unsure on thunderstorm chances right now, but we could be locked in this on again, off again humid pattern maybe for the next 10 days. We're just seeing this air from the south move in. It's much different than our normal air pattern flow, and that's why the weather's been so unusual and certainly kind of wacky for us.
So we're just not used to this. It's strange to have these forecasts, Jeff.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll see you a bit later on.
It definitely is.
Well, one of the most high-profile prisoners in San Quentin is back in the headlines. The decision today that changes Scott Peterson's future.
One of the Bay Area's most notorious murder cases may be heading back to court. Today, the state Supreme Court overturned the death penalty sentence of Scott Peterson. He's the Modesto man convicted of murdering his wife Lacey and their unborn son Connor on Christmas Eve in 2002. Today, the court ruled the trial judge wrongly excluded jurors who were opposed to the death penalty. The court upheld Peterson's guilty verdict. This now means attorneys must decide whether to request a new penalty hearing or accept a sentence of life without parole.
Well, beginning tonight, the Republicans are in the national spotlight. The national convention kicking off in North Carolina. President Trump was in Charlotte today as more than 300 delegates formally nominated him for a second term. They were there in person. Unlike the Democrats' virtual convention last week, live audiences will be involved during the Republicans' week-long event. The convention program moves on to Washington, D.C. in just a couple hours from now. Among the notable speakers, Donald Trump Jr. and Nikki Haley. Also today, Joe Biden picking up endorsements from more than 24 former Republican members of Congress, including former Arizona Senator Jeff Flake. We're back in a moment.
Sky Ranger over the CZU fire burning in the Santa Cruz Mountains. This fire has destroyed over 150 structures, including in this neighborhood near Big Basin. A 70-year-old man was killed in this fire. This fire has burned 78,000 acres. About 80,000 are forced to flee their homes, and it's only 13% contained. Of course, we'll have a lot more on this fire and the others tonight at 6.